Gold Coast Investment Showcase, which was earlier this year. And it was interesting because they were doing their IPO and they opened at 2 cents. And I think they're trading at 5 cents now, but I think you got to around 7 cents, wasn't it? 7 cents? About 3 weeks ago. So that's pretty impressive. This is Alex Hanley joining us. So for those of us West Australians in the room, don't bother trying to have a chat with Alex about footy because he's from Queensland and he's only really interested in the rugby. But that appears to be his only fault that I can see. Now, if he's not building the next big lithium project, which is his focus, of course, with Lithium Universe, he likes to go spearfishing and catching fish down deep under the water. So I've said he needs to come back for Explore in February next year. So I can convince him of that when you go and have a chat with him and go off Rottnest, because that will be interesting. But today he's here to talk with us all about Lithium Universe. So please make him welcome, everyone.
After a 10-year hiatus, a new lithium company emerges from the galaxy. Introducing Lithium Universe Limited, building a lithium future. The lithium trailblazer and pioneer Iggy Tan is back. Iggy Tan started his time commissioning the lithium carbonate plant at Greenbushes, before moving on to Galaxy Resources, where he spearheaded the company from a $10 million market cap to about $2.5 billion at merger with Orocobre after he left. Iggy was responsible for the first fully integrated mine to refinery project and is recognised as one of the first mining executives to understand and execute against the lithium-ion future. The fully integrated mine to refinery project comprised the Mount Coughlan project, rated 140,000 tonne per annum, the Jiangsu lithium carbonate plant, rated at 17,000 tonne per annum, and project generation activities including the James Bay Allchem project, now run by Allchem, and also the Sal de Vida brine project in Argentina. On the left-hand side here is the Mount Coughlan project, which is still owned and operated by Allchem. It's a 1 million tonne per annum mining operation, going through a 4-stage crushing circuit, going through a DMS circuit, and then producing about 140,000 tonne per annum. And this was then shipped to the Jiangsu lithium carbonate plant on the right-hand side here, which is now owned by Tianqi. This was, at its time when it was commissioned, one of the biggest or the biggest lithium carbonate plants in China, and to this day remains a benchmark for process control throughout China. And notably, when this was commissioned, the price was just a touch over $6,000 a tonne. And now the lithium carbonate is now trading upwards of $30,000 a tonne. This provides a little bit of insight and foresight into the vision and ability to execute within the early stages of the lithium industry as we know it today. Now, also joining us on the board from a non-executive director perspective is Pat Galan. Pat ran Greenbushes for 25 years. Pat brings a very focused lithium skill set, having overseen and executed an expansion of Greenbushes from 200,000 tonne per annum to about 1.4 million tonne per annum. Why Canada? We've got projects in Ontario and Quebec. The project, I suppose, in comparison, Australia produced about 300,000 tonne per annum of LCE in 2022. In comparison, and although the region between WA and Canada is quite fertile in comparison, there's been little to no spodumene or lithium coming out of the country. So what we're seeing is an influx of lithium expertise now making their way into Canada to first explore, then develop this new frontier. A few words from Iggy Tan, our chairman. Lithium projects are taking too long to come online, and there's not enough coming online to meet future demand. There's been a substantial investment in Canada, but not enough to actually meet or produce any lithium in Canada. And finally, there's a lot of lithium explorers, but none have the expertise to actually execute projects. Introducing the Apollo Lithium Project. The Apollo project is situated in the Trans-Tyger region of Quebec, situated within the James Bay region. And when this was pegged in early 2022, it was situated in between two previously unknown explorers, still finding their feet within the region and finding their feet within the market. This is a 240 square kilometre licence, which is quite large and a very dominant position within the James Bay region. We're not here to explore for exploration's sake. We're here to build a project as quick as we can. The two projects that I mentioned are, of course, Patriot Battery Metals Corvette project and also Winsome Resources Adina, which are both within a 30-kilometre radius of the Apollo project. When this was staked, it was staked by Dr. Julie Selway, who's a leading lithium expert out of Ontario. And she pegged this on behalf of our partner because it's in the same La Grande greenstone belt as Corvette, Cairnsett, and also Adina, and also has the same sort of structural and host geology as our neighbours. Now, in terms of comparisons and what we're seeing within the region, Corvette's coming out with some pretty interesting hits. 156 metres at 2%. Adina coming out with near surface results of 107 metres at 1.3%. Using our benchmark in the top right-hand corner here, these intercepts are neither sort of great or excellent. They're simply outstanding. So what we're seeing is essentially high-grade, thick mineralisation from surface. So as well as these typical attributes, we're also seeing the outcropping nature within the James Bay region and also the core spodumene component. So why do they occur as outcrops? Now, what tends to occur? These are steeply dipping or near vertical lenses with a surficial representation. And what this means is that it makes it amenable to open cut or open pit mining. Low strip ratio, lower capex, lower ongoing opex. At Apollo, we've got 17 known pegmatite outcrops from the government dataset that we're looking to explore. In terms of core spodumene now, we're obviously seeing it's core spodumene at both Allchem, at Corvette with Patriot, but also at Adina with Winsome Resources. Now, why this is important is because from a processing standpoint, the processing is very simple. A 4-stage crushing circuit going onto a DMS, very similar to what Iggy built at Mount Catlin, what is designed for James Bay, but also is what's most likely going to be designed for Corvette with Patriot as well. So what we're seeing is obviously a very hot region, as we all know. So, Patriot's come out with a 109 million tonne resource, Allchem with a 110 million tonne resource. These are globally significant resources. The number 1 and number 2 resources in all of the Americas, and number 8 and 9 ranked globally. So obviously this is naturally bringing investment to the region. We're seeing Albemarle now coming in with a big stake in Patriot. We're seeing Rio Tinto now, organising JVs with both Midlands and Azimut, upwards of $65 million JVs. This is the 1992 Dream Team. They obviously made a name for themselves because we're still talking about them today. We've assembled the Lithium Dream Team, obviously comprising Iggy Tan and Pat Skellan, but also notably Dr. Jingwan Liu. Now, Jingwan is an international expert in lithium and downstream processing, but also we've got Terry Stark, the ex-GM of operations for Galaxy. We've got John Loxton, who actually built the Jiangsu lithium carbonate plant in China. And we've got Roger Pova, who ran both Greenbushes and Mount Catlin from a processing perspective. On the bottom right-hand side here is Hoi Nhan, who actually designed and constructed Mount Catlin for Iggy back in the day. We've got myself, Gernot Abel, Exec Director, and Head of Geology, Justin Rivers. Sorry, there we go. So we've commenced very early works on the license. We've enlisted the help of Core AI. Core AI are a AI generative program that actually use machine learning from nearby deposits to really understand that outcropping nature, which has become typical and prevalent within the region. Using spectral ID, LiDAR, and satellite imagery, they're able to hone in on specific outcrops, which are representative of typical whaleback features within the Apollo license. What this aids us is in fast-tracking our exploration. We've got 240 square kilometres, which is a lot of ground to cover. So this gives us a top priority list to start cracking on as soon as we can. And we've already started working on that with a release just yesterday. So we've already completed an airborne mag survey. We've already done some microgravity work. We've done some soil sampling, and we're going to continue doing soil sampling and rock chip sampling over the coming weeks. But most notably from the airborne magnetic survey, what we're seeing from a structural perspective is that we seem to be, or it's currently interpreted, that we're on the same structural or shear zone as what's only 30 k's east of us at Adina. The portfolio comprises a rare earth project in Tasmania, just proximal to ABX Resources. We've got a lithium project at Lefroy, which is near Bald Hill and Mount Marion. In Ontario, we've got a project called Margot Lake, which is right next door to the Spark and Pack deposit. But all the focus for us is the Apollo lithium project in Quebec, James Bay. It's got all the right ingredients of a potential lithium discovery, and combined with the lithium dream team we've put together with a proven track record to deliver. So please join us on our mission to the galaxy. Oh, sorry.
I was sure that you usually have a little piece at the end.
Yeah, there was.
What happened to it, Shane? Did we lose it? Did someone steal our YouTube bit? Now we have
Welcome to the Lithium Industry Update. Australian company Lithium Universe Limited has announced that exploration work has begun at its flagship Apollo lithium project in James Bay, Quebec. Thanks to early permitting and field preparation, the company has been able to swiftly launch its on-ground operations during this summer season without any delays. An exploration crew flew in recently and has begun fieldwork and soil sampling at the Apollo project. Considering that the company only relisted on the 14th of August 2023, this is a tremendous achievement. Lithium Universe has partnered with Laurentia Exploration Incorporated, a highly reputable exploration company based in Quebec, Canada. Laurentia is known for its dynamic and flexible approach to exploration and has achieved great success across a variety of projects in the James Bay region. All work in the region is accessed by helicopter. Personnel and equipment mobilisation between Ottish Camp and the Apollo project is undertaken daily by a Bell 212 helicopter. Other work completed on the project includes high-resolution airborne magnetic and microgravity surveys, as well as soil sampling at the northwest corner of the Apollo project. Working with Core AI Technologies Limited, the company also announced the utilisation of artificial intelligence to shape its exploration strategy. Priority targets for future drilling campaigns have been identified, and the company looks forward to reporting further progress in coming months.
Right. I feel like I duped you there at the end there because it doesn't have quite the gravitas that it usually would have. Would you please put your hands together for our presenter who suffered at the hands of my tech ineptitude? We're going to go to Europe next. Did anyone go to Europe for summer or for their summer? Anyone? No, we were all too busy here, weren't we? In the cold, just looking to where to put our investment money. The next fellow's been, he's going back again. And you know what was interesting too, because you have all of summer in Europe. For those of you who've been in Europe, basically they just nick off, go away, no one does any work. But on the 1st of September, they all come back in a rush. And on the 1st of September, the president of Czechoslovakia stood up and he said, you know what, we have 6 pillars moving forward. And one of those pillars is going to be uranium, which is really good news for European. Did I say uranium? My God, did I really say that just then? Excuse me. Let me just rewind and take my teeth out and put my other ones in. So he stood up and he said, we've got 6 pillars moving forward. One of them that's really, really important is lithium, which is really good news for our next presenter, European metals. So they have a project called Sinovac. Now, in addition to the fact that the Czechoslovakian president has stood up and said, this is important, we're doing lithium, Sinovac's in the right place. Sinovac has also been the recipient of 6 million euros of investment from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So they're in a pretty good position at the moment. Should we be jumping on board with them? Would you please welcome up to the podium today to chat a little bit more about this. This is Keith Coughlan, and Keith is the MD at European Metals.
Thank you very much, Chrissy. we have to call it the Czech Republic these days, or they get very upset. It's not Czechoslovakia anymore, no.
I'm going really
Minor,
well,
minor problem. Thank you all for your attendance, and for those of you who are online. Yes, as Chrissy mentioned, I'd like to chat to you about Cinovets, our lithium project in the Czech Republic, the largest hard rock lithium resource in Europe, after our disclaimer, of course. So a couple of headlines. Firstly, Cinovets will be a fully integrated project. That is, our end product is not a concentrate. We'll be going all the way through to battery-grade chemical. We've already been able to produce both battery-grade lithium carbonate and battery-grade lithium hydroxide. I mentioned right up front the largest hard rock lithium resource in Europe. An important distinction is it's by far the largest hard rock lithium resource in the EU, and I'll elaborate on that a little later. I mentioned earlier, carbonate. We have compelling economics that I'll also touch on, very strong partners in the region, fully funded through to final investment decision expected early next year, and very strong ESG credentials. Partially that's because this is a historic underground tin mine. So we probably don't think much in Perth about the mining history of Europe, but they produced tin here at Cinovets off and on for 600 years. So there's a very, very long mining history, very large endowment of tin still remaining there. I mentioned the economics. As you can see, these numbers are a little old, about 18 months old, and we're in the process of concluding our definitive feasibility study now, which will update these numbers. That study's due for publication, I would say, in November, but certainly last quarter of this year. But the numbers from 18 months ago, this has an NPV, $2 billion US, an IRR of over 36%, both post-tax numbers. And those numbers were calculated using a lithium hydroxide price of $17,000 a tonne. Since then, of course, it's been north of $80,000 a tonne, and it's now around $32,000 a tonne, which interestingly, people are calling lower lithium prices. But I can assure you at $32,000 a tonne, the NPV of this project is more like $5.5 billion than it is $2 billion. And US dollars they are, and you'll notice the aberration on this slide between that and our current market capitalisation of $150 million. So there's a fair way to go. You would have heard earlier from Eddie Rigg, the markets are all a bit tough at the moment. Lithium price is down relatively to where it's been. But you'll also hear supply-demand equation is still very strong in the lithium space, and we'll chat through that a bit as well. I mentioned that it's an important distinction, the European Union versus Europe as a whole. And that's because the EU is fully committed to this thematic. The EU is fully committed to the green energy transition, fully committed to building a battery industry, fully committed to an electric vehicle future, and recently have become fully committed to securing the critical raw materials to do that. And that's very helpful for a project like ours. Because we are by far the largest hard rock lithium resource in the region, we get the EU's attention, and that's evident in a couple of ways. Firstly, you'll see this Just Transition Fund I've got listed in the top right-hand corner of this slide. The project's already been awarded a grant out of the JTF in the order of 50 million euros, which is obviously handy, very handy to have that sort of money, but more importantly, it demonstrates that we are becoming part of the club within the EU, which will help a lot towards developing the project. Another indication, as Chrissy mentioned up front, we've just taken an investment from the EBRD, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, 6 million euros. Small amount of money. They actually wanted to give us 20 million, but we didn't really want that dilution at this point in time. But what's important with that is that EBRD conducted approximately 9 months of due diligence in making this investment, which is a long time for 6 million euros. What it points to is that they will be there down the track for us as well as we go to raising the significant money required to bring the project into production. We'll look to the EBRD and their associated entities, for example, the European Investment Bank, to help us fund this project into production. The EBRD was formed to help rebuild Central and Eastern Europe after the communist years. They've invested something like 170 billion euros in this part of the world, over about 6,500 transactions since that time. So significant party for us to have as a partner. The reason that Europe is so keen on developing battery industry is This is the uptake of electric vehicles across the region. It's a slightly busy slide, I apologise for that. But the important bar, the red bars showing this year's production of EVs over previous years. It actually began late last year, as you'll see in the right-hand side. And in the key European markets, Germany, France and the UK, nearly every month these days, more than 50% of all new vehicles are some form of electric vehicle. So this is where the uptake is coming. The demand for lithium will grow in Europe faster than anywhere else in the world, and there is no current production of lithium in Europe whatsoever. So you've got huge demand, no supply. There's where the opportunity lies for us. This is a map of the gigafactories being built or in advanced planning stages across the region. The gold star you see in the middle there is the project. So from a location point of view, it really couldn't be better, surrounded by these customers. Now, this is a Fraunhofer Institute slide. They predict that by 2030, the region will require 1.3 to 1.5 billion tonnes of lithium carbonate equivalent. And as I say, there is none produced in this region so far. So that's an enormous amount of lithium. It's unsure where it's going to come from. The EU has made various statements about what sort of levels of lithium self-sufficiency they want to achieve. They're talking about 10% by 2030. Even that's 130 to 150,000 tonnes LCE, again from a zero balance. And if you look at all of the lithium development projects in the region, it's still uncertain how they'll even get to that target. So again, this is very good news for us. The Benchmark Minerals, if you're here early, you would have heard Cameron Perks speak from Benchmark, very well regarded in the space. This is their slide. These are their words. Lithium demand skyrockets to 2050. You don't often get analysts using words like skyrockets, but gives you some indication of where the demand for lithium is going. The stat on this chart that I particularly like, well, if I push the right buttons, laser pointer is this one here. By 2040, they're predicting that the lithium demand per month globally will be more than the entire lithium production for 2021, which is a fairly stark fact. And you know, when you think about where the lithium market's going, where the price is going, supply and demand gives you a very clear answer. This is an aerial view of the project. You can see just north of that larger blue dot, this line is the Czech-German border. Oh, sorry, up here, line is the Czech-German border. As I say, the project is very large, a very large resource. That dot is drawn to size. Our portal in the forest, just to the southeast of the ore body. Our head office between the larger blue dot and the smaller blue dot, and the smaller blue dot being our plant site at a town called Dukla that we secured only a few months ago now. So we have the processing plant site secured. We'll be transporting the ore via an overhead conveyor system from the mine portal over the forests and down to the site again, enhancing the ESG credentials of the project. Further enhancing them, these coal pits that I've shown in the photo down to the southwest are controlled by our project company, our project company partner, CHES, and we'll be using some of our tailings to help rehabilitate these brown coal pits, again, giving us good ESG credentials in the region, good corporate citizen status. I mentioned Synovitz was large, so from an EU point of view, it accounts for more than 65% of all the known hard rock lithium resources in Europe, in the EU. This is important from 2 points of view. Firstly, long-term security of supply, obviously, but also secondly, as I mentioned earlier, it gives us the attention of the EU, and I believe that will be very helpful when we go through the permitting and financing phase to get the project into production. This is the most recent example of the end product that we've produced, very high purity lithium carbonate. In fact, our crude material is almost battery grade and then beneficiates very easily into battery grade material. I've listed all of the common impurities in battery grade lithium carbonate and the specifications of the key battery makers. And as you can see, we deliver within all of those specifications. So very high purity product. Our flow sheet, for those of interest, is very simple, straight through roast. It's a single stage mid-temperature roast, which means we use less energy, have a lower carbon footprint and lower costs than your standard spodumene roast, which is two-stage and very high temperature. I've also listed this to show our ability to produce various battery-grade lithium chemicals. Obviously, hydroxide and carbon are very well known, but there's a growing market for lithium phosphate and for lithium sulfate, and we have the flexibility to switch to any of these products, which is very helpful for us. Moving quickly, because we're running out of time, ESG credentials. So we're re-entering a historic underground mine. So already we have far less impact on the environment, far less impact on the community than if we were breaking new ground. This is very important, particularly in Europe, as you can understand. There's a bunch of other reasons there that I won't read through for you, but the ESG profile is significant, so much so we had Minviro conduct an LCA, a life cycle assessment for us at PFS stage. They'll update this for DFS in the next couple of months. This particular slide shows the global warming potential, which we all just used to call carbon footprint. As our partner is the Czech National Power Utility with significant green energy credentials. They've committed to providing solar power to the project, which shows in the second bar we've got there a very low carbon footprint relative to other lithium projects globally. ESG is a very, very important factor, as I say, particularly somewhere like Europe, particularly with the customers, the end product, people who we're talking to, you know, the key OEMs of Europe are very, very focused on their image, their green credentials, and being able to source one of their key battery metals with such good ESG credentials is very important to them. The PFS, I'd mentioned it was about 18 months old, so this will be updated with our DFS in the next couple of months. But I just wanted to highlight, this is based on producing 30,000 tonnes per annum, or just under, of battery-grade lithium hydroxide and or the carbonate equivalent. And if we modelled that for 25 years, it uses, as you'll see in the bottom right corner, less than 10% of the overall resource. That's how big the deposit is. So we are busily working on an expansion study to look at a phase 2 of production, which hopefully will take that 30,000 tonnes per annum closer towards the 60,000 level, making it a truly globally significant producer. We were able to produce a tonne of battery-grade lithium hydroxide for under 6,000 US tonne. These numbers will change with the DFS, obviously, but the economics of the project are very strong. Going forward in the bottom half of this slide, as I go into the last couple of minutes, what we need to do, and we'll be doing it over the course of the next 4 to 6 months, finish our strategic partner discussions, sign offtake agreements with one or more of the key European partners that we have in mind, finishing the permitting phase, get this company from, or the project from DFS to final investment decision, which involves finishing the permitting, etc. We are in the midst of, well, actually in the tail end of a pilot program here in Perth for some further test work on the flow sheet. But as part of that, we'll produce battery-grade lithium carbonate samples for distribution to our potential customers and bring the project into production. Very quickly, the team we've put together, and please, if you're interested, I encourage you to have a look at the full presentation on our website, as this is only an abbreviated version. But we're building a world-class team to put in place a world-class project. Our in-country partners, chairs of the largest company in the Czech Republic. They own all of the EV charging stations. They own the grid. They're 70% owned by the Czech government and a very handy partner for us. If you'd like to know any more, I'm in the first booth around the corner outside. Thank you very much for your time.
Keith Coughlan, European Metals Holding, world-class lithium project in the Czech Republic. I got that all correct, didn't I? Thank you so much, buddy. Thank you. Hey, knew 3,500 years ago, the Chinese added the next mineral we're talking about to their porcelain, and it made that beautiful peachy colour that you see in it. if you fast forward to 2023, it has many, many more applications. It's powering our future way of life. It's also been credited with bringing King Island off Tasmania back to life. The story of Group 6 Metals is being presented here to us today by MD and CEO Keith McKnight, he of the Irish lilt. It is a tungsten project that is in production, no less, which is pretty exciting. I went down to Cooper's, which is near the coffee machine. You've all put your business cards in. There's my last reminder for you today, because we are drawing that bottle of Grange after our last presentation. So I went down to Cooper's near the coffee machine, and I caught up with this guy at his booth, and I said, what's the headline? Why are people going to want to stay in their seats, our investors, and listen to you? And he said, tungsten is going to be it already is, very important geopolitically. Very important geopolitically. And to quote Keith, this is a presentation you need to pay attention to. So please make him welcome, everyone.
Hi, everyone. I hope you had a good day and you still have time to pay attention to my presentation. I'm going to talk about the Dolphin Tungsten project. It's got a long history on King Island, first operated in 1917 and then closed in 1990 due to very low tungsten prices. So a short 33 years later, the project's been rejuvenated and has come back to life. It's now in production. It's one of the highest grade tungsten deposits in the Western world outside of China. And as Christy said, I think tungsten kind of fades a little bit into the background in the current fever for lithium, but tungsten can also play a role in the clean energy transition as well. So just some of the key highlights for the Dolphin project. As already said, we're in production. It's about 2.5 months now since we completed commissioning of the plant. We're in ramp-up phase. We've got an optimized 13-year mine life. It's well known, it's underpinned by reserves. There's also some really exciting opportunities regionally, and also at the Bold Head, which was a previously operating mine in the 70s. Critical mineral, due to its wide range of industrial applications, which are critical to economic development. Tungsten is considered a critical mineral, and also just over 85% is currently, the world demand is currently supplied by China and Russia. Therefore, any further deterioration in geopolitical relationships with China could result in a severe shortage of tungsten. We've got our offtake agreements in place with two well-recognized industry participants in Traxys and Wolfram Bergbau Hutton, which is a subsidiary of Sandvik. Highest grade deposit, as I touched on, by far higher grade than its Western peers, probably by a factor of 2 or 3 times to the next best. So should be well positioned to weather any dip in tungsten prices. Attractive margins. This is about $100 million Australian dollar per year operation with an all-in margin of 37%. So quite an exciting margin on this project, and could act as a really good springboard to build projects in other jurisdictions. And we've got a very supportive shareholder registry. Our top 4 shareholders have demonstrated over and over again their support for this project. So we're in a pretty good position. So it's our largest and highest grade tungsten project. We're going to restart this project in our development stage to get involved. I touched on this just a minute ago. This is our life of mine production over the 13.5 years or so. Just to bring your attention here to this pops in at around 18 months. So our average grade across the open cut, which goes to June 29, is about 0.7. In about 18 months' time, we'll go to 1.2%. So we're going to see a big improvement in our production, and that will give us a healthy improvement in our cash flow also. And then following that period, we go back into average grade material, and then we've got a bonanza pit before we go into the underground just after 2029. That bonanza pit will recover about 340,000 MTUs, and all the waste will have been removed. So there'll be no waste removal for that last kind of 10 to 11 months of mining of the open pit. So it's going to be a very exciting period also. So just a quick corporate snapshot. We've got just over 1 billion shares on issue, trading around that 10.5 to 12 cents at the moment, and getting a bit of support around there. So I think the market is now waiting for us to demonstrate that this plant can perform, and that's something that we'll hope to prove over the next 2 to 3 months. So low risk mining start. We commenced our drill and blasting activities 3-4 weeks ago. We had a small delay in getting explosives onto the island. Extremely complicated process trying to mobilize high energy explosives onto King Island, but we've overcome all those challenges and we've started our production blasting. We've got access to high grade ore on the pit floor, and also on the western side of the open pit, which we're currently mining at the moment and supplying that material to the process plant. And then we're also drilling and blasting on the eastern side there, and we're removing waste in preparation for accessing the eastern side of the pit. The overburden rock on this project's pH neutral. Historically, it's been used to construct the seawall around the grassy port, so it's a big advantage for the project, and it allows us to use that material for construction activities and to progressively raise our TSF, so it's a big advantage for the project. So our process plant, we produce 2 products, if you like. There's a coarse product, which is primarily gravity with some dressing at the back end. And then we also produce a fine ore concentrate, which goes through tungsten flotation. So we're primarily a gravity concentrate process plant. We've achieved concentrate grades in excess of 70%. So we're quite comfortable the plant can process the material, deliver high grade concentrate. What we're working on now is on our recovery and throughput. We're currently operating at about 70% throughput, and we're focused on our recovery specifically through the fine ore circuit, through the tungsten flotation side of the plant. So what happens after we get this project into cash flow positive position? We've got a huge area of exploration tenure around the mining lease. We've got the Bold Head deposit that's located just to the north of Dolphin. We've recently announced a pretty conservative maiden reserve. As I stated earlier, that was previously an underground mine. It operated in the 70s, and then the team that were operating the mine decided to focus on Dolphin because it was higher grade material. But we can go back in there and recover that, and that will supplement the Dolphin project, potentially after that high grade open cut period that I described earlier. So just a little bit on geology here. I'm an engineer, so the geologists in the group, please don't castigate me too much. But really what we have here is we've got a large granite intrusion, and where the granite contacts the lower grassy group, we get mineralization. So we get the formation of tungsten in those areas. So we've got in that contact area around the periphery here, we've got 9 kilometers of area to explore. That's been previously drilled by Pico Walls End at 500 meter spacings. To put that in context, Bold Head would fit in. The Bold Head deposit's about 100 meters by 400 meters. So there's potential to find several Bold Head type deposits in this area. So once we get into cash flow positive position, we'll go and explore that, and we'll do a systematic approach to finding additional resources and reserves. So offtake agreements, we've got 2 offtake agreements in place with WBH and Traxys. We've shipped material to both under those agreements to date, and we'll continue to build up the volumes as we progress over the next 2 to 3 months. Potentially, we are engaged with other potential offtake partners. once we get into that kind of steady state nameplate production, we'll have spare material, circa 40% to place with other potential buyers of tungsten concentrate. So the tungsten price historically has been quite volatile, has made projects like this difficult to fund. You'll see there the early part of this 5-year period that quite volatile there. We had 2 periods of volatility. That first one was due to there was a stockpile of APT discovered in China in a warehouse, and that material, about 28,000 tons, there was concern that it was going to be dumped in the market. That didn't eventuate, and the price quickly recovered. That material obviously has been sold through now. And then we had this down period here around COVID, when we had that economic slowdown as a result of COVID. And since then, the price has recovered strongly. It hit a decade high of $350 per MTU in May last year. So an MTU is 10 kilograms. So that's an MTU of WO3. And it's tracked down slightly to about 310, 305. Volumes have been weaker in the first half of the year, and that's primarily down to selling down of stockpile material. There was a buildup of material due to concerns over the Russia-Ukraine conflict. That material has been sold down over the first 6 months. And I think what's quite encouraging is that the price hasn't come off too much. So that brings me to my point down here. Historically, we've estimated that the break-even price, APT price for Chinese producers, sits around that $230 to $250 USD per MTU. But given the global inflationary pressures, stricter regulatory regime, we're estimating that that's probably pushed above $260 now. So I think that's going to be very positive for the Dolphin Tungsten project. So we touched on this. Tungsten is going to play an ever increasingly important role in the geopolitical landscape. It's obviously an important mineral for economic development, but we're seeing a big increase in its consumption in defense, and particularly around the production of ammunitions. Due to the conflict in Ukraine, there's a widespread ammunition shortage, and an important component of tooling up to increase that production capacity is the use of tungsten. So we're going to see a considerable growth in the defense sector for tungsten over the next 3 to 5 years. So again, supply and demand, mainly tungsten is used because of its physical properties, its resistance to wear. It's mainly used as a cutting, as tungsten carbide on cutting tools. So it's used in mining construction, mainly on hammer bits and drill bits, automotive for turning, cutting engine blocks, etc. And industrial, there's significant growth in the use of tungsten wire for cutting, for silicon wafers, and also for PV cells. And in energy, we're seeing, for drilling oil and gas, but also in clean energy, in wind turbines, etc. And it can also play a role, just quickly, in clean energy transition. Very exciting technology being developed in the UK by Nyobolt, combining tungsten with niobium and producing anodes that facilitate fast charging. So this is a very exciting development. I touched on wind turbines, but also tungsten used in solar panels and fuel cells for in converting hydrogen to electric power. So we've got being on King Island, an island that's known for its farm to plate and golf tourism. We're very conscious of our responsibility to develop this mine in a responsible way. We've committed 38, just under 38 hectares to conservation adjacent to the mine, and we're also, very highly conscious on our safety as well. We've even through this construction period, we've achieved 546 days of last time incident-free days. So that's really a big plus and bonus to the team there, and they should be congratulated on that. So look, thank you for your attention. I will be outside for another 30 minutes if you want to come out and find me at the booth. And make sure you keep an eye on us over the next 2 or 3 months. Thank you.
Well done, Keith. You're flying back to Brisbane, are you, straight away? He's off, he's focused. He's only a bloke, can do one thing at a time once. You didn't hear me say that. I wanted to read something out to you, and this was in one of the local mining rags back in September 2020. And it said, diamond drilling is set to start next week at the Andover nickel copper prospect near Roebourne. It could start to make Azure Minerals Managing Director Tony Rovira's pivot back to Western Australia more permanent, with the results from a 3-month program following up earlier successful Mark Creasy prospecting eagerly anticipated. September 2020. Then some pesky little pegmatites got in your way, didn't they, Tony? Yeah, turned you into the hottest ASX lithium stock on the block. Stocks are actually up in the last 12 months, 1,000%. And with that, I will sit down and allow you all to clap Tony Rovira to see if there's any more upside for us. Cheers.
Thanks, Chrissy, and thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for the opportunity to bring you up to speed with the latest news that Azure Minerals has got with our Andover project. As Chrissy just said earlier, you know, it was originally 3 years ago we picked up the project because of the nickel sulfide potential of the project, and we discovered 2 nickel, copper, cobalt sulfide deposits on the project area, and that was in the first 2 years. And over the last 18 months or so we've been able to refocus our exploration into other commodities, in particular lithium. This is a photograph, a drone shot of part of the Andover project area. As you can see, there's very little in the way of vegetation. There's low rolling hills, and lots and lots of outcrop. Most of the rocks in the area are outcrop. So it makes exploration really easy, or it's relatively straightforward in terms of boots on the ground, traditional geology, mapping and sampling as you go, and actually observing and discovering outcropping mineralisation, which is quite remarkable in this day and age in a location which is only 3 kilometres away from the nearest town of Roebourne. So we've got geologists that have been out on the ground now for over 3 years. They've discovered outcropping nickel and copper mineralisation, and now more recently we've been discovering the outcropping lithium mineralisation. The usual disclaimer and statements which can be found on our website. The first thing I do want to do is acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we operate, the Ngarluma people. It's very important for us, if we want to operate on their land, that we're able to do so in a very responsible manner. We've built a very strong and positive relationship with Ngarluma, and we respect their ownership of the land. We thank them very much for the cooperation that they've been able to provide to us so that we can continue with our exploration. So the main highlight to take away from this particular presentation is that Andover is one of the best lithium exploration projects in the world. It is one of the exploration projects with the greatest resource potential. We've addressed that by putting out a few weeks ago an exploration target of between 100 to 240 million tonnes of resource mineralisation at grades of around between 1 and 1.5% lithium. Now that exploration target is a range because it is a defined term as defined by the ASX. If we are successful in the exploration that we're undertaking and the resource definition drilling that is happening right now, and we were to identify 100 million tonnes of mineral resource, that would probably put us in about number 10 or maybe number 11 in the world today. If we come up with a resource that's going to be at the upper end of that range, around the 240 million tonne scale, then Andover potentially could be top 5 or even higher in terms of the overall resource endowment in top 5 in the world. So this resource potential is enormous. That's the exploration target that we have right now. We've currently got multiple drill rigs drilling on the ground. We expect to be able to have the maiden mineral resource out in the first quarter of next year. Importantly, from the point of view, is the support that we've been getting from our shareholders. Our largest shareholder now is SQM. SQM is the Chilean lithium producer, number 1 or number 2 in the world in terms of total lithium production. SQM became our largest shareholder at the beginning of this year with an investment of $20 million to buy 20% of Azure, which was a significant premium to our valuation at that time. And since then, obviously, our share price has increased, the value of the company's increased, and SQM have obviously been very happy with the outcome of that investment. Recently, we undertook a capital raising, and SQM followed their money by putting in another $20 million to maintain 20% holding in Azure. The Creasy Group is our second largest shareholder. Mark Creasy was the the entrepreneur, is the entrepreneur and very successful mining prospector in Western Australia. We bought the project from him. In fact, we bought 60% ownership of the project from him by issuing shares in the company, and that gave him about an 18% shareholding in Azure. That's since been diluted down to about 13% by the incoming of SQM at the beginning of this year. So the Andover project is a joint venture. It's a 60% owned by Azure, 40% still owned by Creasy. His 40% is free carried through to the decision to mine, and we are sole contributors to all costs going forward until that decision to mine point of view. This is probably one of the more exciting share price graphs that you're going to see in Australia this year. In the last 12 months, we've gone from a share price that was sub 20 cents, so now up around $2.70 today. It's quite remarkable how our discovery of the Andover lithium mineralisation has taken the market by storm. It's actually been incredibly well received, and the excitement factor is enormous. We've got about 440 million shares on issue. As I mentioned, we're in the process of completing a capital raising to raise $120 million. That is a two-stage, two-tranche transaction. We've raised the first $100 million, that's in now. The other $20 million is subject to shareholder approval, which is happening in about a month's time. And then at the back end of that, we'll have about $137 million in the bank. And in addition to that, we're currently carrying out an SPP right now to raise about $10 million, an additional $10 million. So come the end of this month or early part of October, we will have around over $145 million in the bank. So the company's incredibly well cashed up. So where is the Andover project? It's located in the West Pilbara region of Western Australia. So just outside the town of Karratha and Roebourne. We fly 2 hours from Perth to Karratha, a half an hour's drive along the Northwest Coastal Highway, goes through the town of Roebourne and then into and through the Andover project area. Also going through the project area, we've got a gas pipeline, a water pipeline, high voltage power lines. There's roads and tracks throughout the property as well. To the south of us, Rio Tinto have got some operating iron ore mines with an export railway line that runs up our western project boundary up to Cape Lambert in the top right-hand corner of that image, which is one of their 2 major iron ore exporting ports. Offshore, we've got oil and gas production facilities from Chevron and Woodside. There's onshore LNG processing facilities on the Burrup Peninsula next to the Port of Dampier. And of course, the Port of Dampier is a multi-user commercial port which is used for bulk commodity exports. So this is a heavily industrialised area with absolutely world-class infrastructure, and we've got our property of 108 square kilometres sitting right in the middle of it with the ability to tap into a lot of that infrastructure for the development and production of our project. Zooming in onto the project area itself now. So it's 108 square kilometres, 3 exploration licences outlined in blue there, hundreds and hundreds of outcropping pegmatites that are contained within a triangular wedge that strikes between the southwest up to the northeast. That pegmatite swarm is around about 9 kilometres long east-west by 5 kilometres, up to 5 kilometres wide north-south. We've started drilling in there, and we're drilling these multiple pegmatites. We've actually got a budget of 100,000 metres of diamond and RC drilling that's budgeted and programmed for this year. We've completed 42,000 metres of diamond and RC drilling up till now. It's an incredibly busy drilling program. So if we zoom in a little bit and we have a look at the main area where we're currently drilling, target area number 1, multiple stacked pegmatites striking southwest to northeast, dipping towards the northwest. We've drilled 69 diamond holes up until yesterday for about 25,000 metres of diamond core and 86 holes for 17,000 metres of RC. So 155 drill holes have been drilled into this area since we started drilling in March of this year for around about 42,000 metres of drilling, and quite incredible production that we've got going out there. We've currently got 5 diamond rigs on site, 2 RC rigs, and we have another diamond rig that's turning up sometime in the next few days as well. So we're accelerating the drilling program there. The mineralisation has been identified in this little area over 2 kilometres long. Individual pegmatites can be well over 100 metres thick, containing significant lithium mineralisation. And there's 2 cross sections which are shown there as those 2 yellow lines, and we zoom in and have a look at those now. The mineralisation outcrops as lithium-enriched pegmatites containing the preferred lithium mineral of spodumene. Those pegmatites then dip down towards at about 45 degrees towards the northwest, and they seem to be getting fatter with depth. And as we've been drilling deeper, we've been hitting broader and broader intersections of mineralisation. And we've currently drilled down to, in some areas, down to 400 metres below surface, and these pegmatites are over 100 metres fat and contain significant amounts of lithium mineralisation. And if we have a look at some of the better or broader mineralised intersections that we've released publicly, you can see them there anywhere between 90 to over 200 metres of intersection width of high-grade lithium mineralisation, ranging between 1 and 1.5% lithium, and probably the average grade would be around about the 1.2 to 1.3% lithium, and very broad intersections. And not only are they broad down the hole, but they're also broad in true width. We're actually been able to drill these pegmatites fairly close to perpendicular to their dip and their strike. So we've been able to get some very continuous true width of mineralisation that is quite significant. And that mineralisation is continuous over a couple of kilometres in length and from surface to over 400 metres down. So where to from here? Well, we're continuing. We're mobilising more rigs to site. The target area number 1, which is where we're currently drilling, we should have finished the resource drill out in that sometime during the month of September. Meanwhile, we've got rigs moving into target area number 2, and right now we've got 3 rigs in there, and we've got rigs going into target area number 3 next week. Those 2 new areas have also got abundant outcropping pegmatites containing a lot of visible spodumene within them at surface, and we've got very high grades of rock chip sampling that's been happening there over the last year or so. So these areas are high priority and highly prospective for significant lithium resources. And that exploration, that resource drilling will be continuing throughout the rest of this year to enable us to present a maiden mineral resource in the first quarter of next year. But in addition to that, the drilling will continue, and I expect that roughly this same number of drill rigs, maybe half a dozen drill rigs, will be continuing to drill out this lithium mineralisation throughout 2024. So one could expect upgraded mineral resources to be announced later on next year. So we zoom in a little bit to that target area 1 and 2. So you can see the left-hand side, target area number 1, that's where almost all the drilling has been carried up till now. We have moved, as I mentioned, 3 diamond rigs up to target area number 2. We've completed 11 holes to date out there, and I can't talk about what we're seeing in the drill holes at this stage, and we've not released any assay information for that drilling at this stage. But what I can confidently say is that we wouldn't be having 3 rigs up there drilling continuously and planning on continuing to drill there in the weeks ahead if we weren't being encouraged by what we could see in the drill core. And I'd better leave it at that point for now. So where to from here for the company and the project? Well, that exploration target will be converted into a mineral resource in the first quarter of next year. As I mentioned earlier, if we're at the low end of that range, we'll be potentially top 10 in the world in terms of lithium size. If we're in the top end of that range, we'll be definitely in the top 5 of the lithium resources anywhere in the world. This project at Andover is quite remarkable in the continuity and the consistency of the lithium mineralisation that we're hitting in the drilling, and potentially could be one of the largest ever found. We're that confident. We have started on our scoping study activities, so we have metallurgy test work studies underway. We've got geotechnical and mining studies happening. Heritage surveys are always ongoing with the Ngarluma people. We need to have their cooperation and consent to be able to operate out there, and I do thank them for enabling us to do that. We've got a lot of other different studies happening as well, and that scoping study, if all goes well, should be completed, we expect, by the end of next year. So the Andover project is really quite remarkable. It's just the project that literally just keeps on giving. Firstly, we've discovered 2 nickel and copper sulfide deposits. Then we've discovered this absolutely enormous lithium mineralised zone. So it's quite remarkable, and it just blows us away as to how good this actually is. And so just in summary, I'd say that the company, Azure, together with the project, Andover, we are together building what is going to be an incredibly bright future in the Pilbara region. Thank you very much.
Can I just get a nice little photo of you in front of our logo there, mate? Just to the left, just to prove that you're here and you're part of us. Take one step forward. I'm a bit bossy, aren't I, as the host and the thing. I've always watched you. One step forward to that side there. Oh, gee, come on, mate. There we go. Good on you. He's happy, isn't he? Why wouldn't you be? Tony, thanks so much. It was such a pleasure to watch you standing up there now with your shoulders straight and knowing how well you've done. It's awesome. Could you put your hands together for him again? So great. Now, who put their little cards in at Cooper's in the bowl? Do you put it in? Hands up. Excellent. That reduces my competition. That's fantastic. Rebecca, are you in the room with her? Right. Oh, we're going to do it after. Jackson's really making you wait for it. That's fantastic, which is good because I want you all in the room for this next presentation. So rounding out our company presentations today is Galan Lithium. Now, Galan's flagship assets comprise two 100% world-class lithium brine projects, Hombre Muerto West and Candelas. They're located on the established Hombre Muerto Salar in Argentina, and that's within South America's lithium triangle. They're also exploring at their 100% owned Greenbushes South lithium project in Western Australia. Now, bringing us up to speed today is not JP. If you've seen any of Galan Lithium's presentations before, he's always entertaining. He has actually got boots on the ground in Argentina at the moment. Instead, they've offered up their CFO, Graeme Fox, who despite his years of experience and skill in the resources industry, being the face of the company is not his natural habitat. So I want you all to be very kind and welcoming of him as he comes up here to stand in for JP. Make him welcome to share the Galan opportunity with us. Would you please make him welcome, everyone? Graeme Fox.
Hey, thank you, Chrissy. It's great to be here representing our dear leader, JP. And a great opportunity. I'll bring that down. Okay.
Fantastic. Then you'll sound even better. Start again.
Cool.
This is Graeme Fox, everyone.
Okay. So thank you for the opportunity representing JP and a rare chance for the bean counter to step up and tell the Galan story. We've all got that? Okay, so what do we have at Galan? Only the highest grade, lowest impurity lithium project in Argentina. Our strengths are a world-class location, low risk and rapid project delivery model, a highly experienced local team, a significant resource supporting an ambitious growth plan, strong local community and government support, and importantly, which I'll talk about more, phase 1 permits for the first phase of our project have been granted and we are officially in construction as we speak. A little bit about us. Our market cap is around 250 million Australian. Cash on hand as at June 23 is 45 mil, and we have a tightly held share register. Around 10% of our shares held by directors and management, and the top 20 shareholders holding 52%, which could be handy in the event of unwelcome advances from bargain hunting creditors. Our share price slide is not as interesting or sexy as the previous one. It has been a wild ride over the last couple of years for shareholders in the whole lithium industry, and especially in the brine sector recently. We expect the sector valuations to return to fundamentals and re-rate very soon. So where are we? A world-class location with highly strategic positioning. The Hombre Muerto Salar has been producing lithium for more than 25 years. So meet our neighbours. Our tenements either surround or are adjacent to Livent, Allkem and POSCO, three of the biggest lithium players in Argentina, and obviously Livent and Allkem are about to merge. We boast a 7.3 million tonne resource at an impressive 852 milligrams per litre grade of lithium, and 4.7 million of that is in measured category. We have excellent flow rates and consistency of grade across our 100% owned tenure, and we've recently secured the Catalina rights in the disputed zone between Catamarca and Salta, which provides the foundation for a potential resource increase in the future. So just to explain that, these two lines here are the border between Catamarca province and Salta province in the north of Argentina. And there's a historical dispute where both regional governments were issuing tenements over the same land to different companies. What that meant is that if someone with the rights on either side were to go and do something, they'd end up in dispute with another party. So the easiest way to resolve that dispute is own the land from both provinces. What will this enable? This will enable us to actually include a significant part of our northern tenements into our next resource update. So there's significant potential for the next resource update to increase our resource at Hombre Muerto and potentially increase our target long-term production plan. Some recent highlights. It has been a busy and productive couple of months for Galan. In July and August alone this year, we've released the DFS for our phase 1 production plan for 5.4 kilotons per annum production rate. Full construction permits have been granted and construction is underway. Our pilot plant delivered on-spec 6% lithium chloride concentrate, enabling bulk sample delivery for offtake negotiations. As mentioned, the Catalina resource was secured in the disputed zone, and our most recent announcement of outstanding pump test results and the fact that all 6 wells required for the phase 1 project are now complete. Okay, focusing in on the construction permits for phase 1 that were granted last month. The permits include ponds, plant, on-site laboratory, a 200-person camp, power and other required infrastructure, plus 6 additional production wells. In the first photo, you can see our MD, our chairman, and Pancho with the Catamarca Mines Minister. Nothing tells a story better than a picture. This footprint you can see here is of pond number 1. We've just completed test pit results confirming good growing conditions for the pond construction, and construction of this footprint for our very first pond heading up the alluvial plain is now officially in production. Now, phase 1, to talk a little bit more about what phase 1 really means. Phase 1, we're producing a lithium chloride concentrate of 6% using a proven processing route which uses evaporation technology and lime plant and filter with the sun doing most of the work. Our production rate is 5.4 kilotons per annum production. NPV after tax, $460 million US with an IRR of 36%. Payback 2 years and a free cash flow per year of $54 million. Our phase 2 project, which is targeting 20,000 tonnes per annum, is expected to be delivered later this month. Now, a couple of fun facts about that. The current market cap of Galan is only less than 40% of the NPV of our phase 1 commercial scale pilot plant alone. Our long-term production target, supported by our current resources, is greater than 10 times the scale of phase 1. So you can do your own maths in extrapolating what this thing might be worth. And the other comment I'd make is, despite the depressed times in the brine sector at the moment, the first quartile of the industry cost curve in lithium is dominated by the brine sector. So just to describe where we're going from here, phase 1 is just the start. Greater than 5,000 tonnes per annum, permitted construction underway. Phase 2 DFS out this month with production in 2026. No one's demobbing. This is assuming permits come through on time. This is a continual growth plan supported by an existing resource. Phase 3 and 4 then target 40, then to 60 kilotons per annum LCE, with full production scale targeting 2030 or before. The first 2 phases are focusing on lithium chloride concentrate production, much like the Australian model. We've preserved optionality to move further downstream to lithium carbonate production in phase 3 and 4. Okay, how we do business. Our ESG journey started fairly recently, late last year, early this year, capably supported by the team at Social Suite. So earlier this year, we adopted the World Economic Forum's reporting framework. Our baseline reporting is materially complete. Our recent focus has definitely been on stakeholder consultation, which we were doing anyway as part of our environmental impact assessment, EIA, and our permitting process. We're currently stepping up to put some more meat on the bones and document and report our greenhouse gas emissions inventory, focusing in the next quarter. So meet our board of directors. It includes Daniel and Claudia, both ex-senior SQM executives bringing lithium-specific marketing and technical expertise to the table. We have Richard, our chairman, and Terry, bringing legal, corporate finance, and capital markets experience. And of course, JP, our dear leader, managing director, and company founder, who has been on this journey for 6 years. In South America, we have a strong local team, including Juan Carlos, ex-SQM senior operations manager, who had 5,000 people working under him and has done this on the biggest scale in the world ever done. We have Alvaro, ex-SQM senior hydrologist, and Boris, our project director with very relevant lithium experience with Orocobre, now Allkem, on the same salar that we're working. Importantly, in Argentina, we have Pablo and Pancho, local to the La Puna region in Argentina. They've been with us since day one, and they have been critical in securing land access and support from the local community and authorities along our journey. Supported by a professional team of staff and contractors, all working towards a common goal, a very fun team that I'm very proud of. But wait, there's more. Our Greenbushes South tenements in WA are next door to the biggest lithium mine in the world, a long strike in the Donnybrook Bridgetown shear zone. Our maiden drilling program was completed on the 18th of July this year, and we're awaiting final assay results ahead of release to the market. We're also developing land access agreements for future drill campaigns across our 315 square kilometre tenure. So I've got an elevator pitch here, which is what happens when you get stuck in an elevator with me for 3 minutes. So I'll use this just to recap the who, what, where, when, how, and why of Galan. So who is Galan? An ASX-listed exploration developer, now constructor, cash on hand 45 million, market cap only 250 to 260 million with a tightly held register. Where are we? At Hombre Muerto West, we have the highest grade, lowest impurity lithium project in Argentina. 7.3 million tonne resource at the highest grade ever achieved in the Salar and in Argentina. Adjacent to Livent, POSCO and Allkem in a world-class location. Greenbushes is an exploration upside case with the initial drill program complete. Adjacent to the Tier 1 Greenbushes mine near Bridgetown. Just to recap on the production plan, when are we producing? Phase 1 will be in production by H1 2025. Phase 2, DFS should be out at the end of this month, with production in 2026. Phase 3 and 4, targeting a Tier 1 60,000 tonnes per annum LCE by 2030, with the resource to back it up. How we do business? A low-risk stage production plan and rapid project delivery model. A proven processing route, evaporation from the sun. Strong ESG values, which is an area we've made a lot of progress on recently around people, planet, governance, and prosperity. So why Galan, you may ask? We have a large resource supporting a Tier 1 60,000 tonne growth plan. A highly experienced team, including local expertise to deliver this, including several people ex-SQM who have done this before on a bigger scale. Strong local community and government support evidenced by the recent grant of permits. Initial funding has been secured, about 30% of the funding required for phase 1. We're fully permitted and we have the confidence to deliver. Thank you.
Well done, Graeme. I must say that was a... Am I on? Can you hear me? Yes, no? There we go. Is that better? I've turned off everything. Okay, well, it's a good thing that I have a very loud voice. we are going, when we had the lovely Tyson, who was our barista today, and I think Tyson said to me he's made about 400 cups of coffee, so he's impressed. Might not be good news for our sponsors of the coffee today, which is Cooper Partners, and I'd like to invite Rachel up the front if I can, because she's got in her hands, am I back on? You found it? No? Oh, look, obviously you don't want to listen to me. What we're doing at the moment is we're hooking up some of our other microphones for our